Mass Culture, Chapter 2, Roots of Western Civilization, Part 1, Prehistoric Cave Paintings. Roots of Western Civilization. This video will cover prehistoric cave paintings, ancient Sumer, and then the second video will cover classical Greece and the Gothic Middle Ages. Roots of Western Civilization, prehistoric cave paintings, ancient Sumer, classical Greece, and the Gothic Middle Ages. These four images are from Paleolithic Europe, ancient Iraq, classical Greece, and France in the Gothic Middle Ages. Although there is a 30,000-year span between the first and the last of these images, they all share one significant attribute. Each tells us what the people of the time valued and how they wanted to be represented. They are also significant because they constitute some of the stepping stones that led to the threshold of the Renaissance, the period in which Western art and culture took a decisive and dramatic step towards modern times. Again, each tells us what the people of the time valued and how they wanted to be represented. The three cultures represented by the sculptures reflect changes in communicative technology. Ancient Iraq used cuneiform writing on clay tablets. The Greeks used alphabet writing on papyrus and vellum scrolls. And the Gothic Middle Ages used manuscripts and early woodcut printmaking. In the distant historical roots of Western culture, the values manifested in Renaissance icons and today's mass media were not always celebrated. We will survey 4 examples of these roots to examine some of the technologies developed and the values celebrated in other historical periods. Here is a map of France with the Chauvet-Pont d'Arc cave or grotte in the Ardèche Valley in France circled in red. Chauvet-Pont d'Arc cave or grotte in the Ardèche Valley in France. The cave paintings in Grotte Chauvet or Chauvet Cave are probably over 32,000 years old. That means they are some of the oldest art on the planet. They were discovered in 1994. More than 300 paintings and engravings, so these are images created by carving shallow lines into the rock surface, are scattered over the surfaces of the Chauvet cave chambers. The animals which are depicted moving and often overlapping include bears, bison, horses, hyenas, ibex, owls, rhinoceros, and large spotted felines, possibly panthers. There are also numerous abstract symbols from dots to lines to geometric shapes that are arrayed around and under the animals. And there are handprints, probably created by the artist placing his or her hand against the cave wall and blowing pigment through a hollow straw-like cane to spray it around the spread fingers. So here's an example of some of the animals. Colored dirt was mixed with animal fat and applied with sticks. The colors of prehistoric cave paint are usually red, yellow, and black. There are also fire pits, stone tools, fragments of torches, and ceremonially aligned bear skulls. Although it is certain from bone remains that the animals in the paintings were those the Paleolithic people of Grotte Chauvet hunted, we can only hypothesize about how the images functioned. The most common theory of how the images functioned is that the paintings depicted hunting techniques and rituals. Another image. One theory suggests that the Chauvet cave paintings were the predecessors of today's animated films, moving the light of torches over the otherwise darkened surface of the caves made the painted images appear to move. The visuals may have been accompanied by the recounting of stories and myths. Concentrated in the back galleries of large dark caves, the paintings and attendant rituals offered instruction and entertainment, not unlike Hollywood movies today. Another analogy might be made between the ancient experience of being surrounded by lively images in a cave and the contemporary experience of being submerged in virtual reality art. All right, part 2, Ancient Sumer. Ancient Sumer. The ancient cultures that developed between the fertile Tigris-Euphrates riverbeds of modern-day Iraq is usually called Mesopotamia. The early phase of Mesopotamia, Sumer, was a loosely associated group of city-states that began over 6,000 years ago. By at least 3500 BCE, the Sumerians had built complex city-states in sites like Uruk and Tel Asmar. And here's a map. Sumer, the urban experience. Ancient Sumer was probably the first culture to expand villages into cities and then city-states. The origin of the Sumerians and the stages of development of the city-state, with its particular myths and heroes, are historical puzzles only partially solved. So we only know some of the information from this time. What is clear is that with the Sumerian city-state, a qualitative new kind of human experience, the urban experience, came into existence. Sumer, development of written language. The ancient cities of Sumer had massive buildings, and the Sumerian social organization was based on specialized bureaucracies. The Sumerians not only invented a form of writing, they also had a rudimentary mass media technology in the form of written and pictorial messages printed by rolling carved cylinder seals over clay tablets. Ziggurat. These inventions contributed to an orderly and predictable way of life directed by the gods. The presence of the gods was indicated by the most important structure of the Sumerian city, the massive stepped pyramidal platform known as a ziggurat that stood at its center. The sacred structure was heavily fortified with thick walls protecting concentric rings of higher and higher elevations. Religious life. Archaeological remains suggest that Sumerian cities were comprised of mud brick dwellings surrounding a central temple complex elevated on the ziggurat. The ziggurat was a symbolic mountain. On top was the temple. The temple was the house of the city's patron deity or god. In the temple, the Sumerian priests and kings communicated with the deities. Ordinary citizens could not communicate directly with the deities. The priests and kings did this for them. Political decisions were thereby given religious authority. Ruler priests approached temples on processional pathways that followed the angular circuit of the architectures. Worshippers remained below, as distant witnesses of the religious spectacles in front of and inside the temples. Such a ritual is portrayed in the Standard of Ur. Found in one of the largest graves in the Royal Cemetery of Ur, the standard is a large 8-inch by 19-inch wooden box covered with elaborate mosaic of shell, red limestone, and lapis lazuli. Both sides of the box are organized into 3 hierarchical registers. One side depicts war. On the top register, soldiers lead prisoners of war to their king. Below, infantry and charioteers do battle with an unnamed enemy. The peace side of the box depicts what may have been a victory celebration. We don't really know. Servants wait upon the king and his guests at a banquet. In 2 registers below them, commoners parade to the court, bearing gifts for the ruler. And please watch the external video resource to hear more about the Standard of Ur. The Standard of Ur and another version of the 2 sides. All right, media technology. We are not limited to inference in reading the sacred images of ancient Sumer like we were in the Chauvet caves. The people of the Sumerian cities developed a writing system called cuneiform, done with pointed sticks pressed into wet clay tablets. Most of these tablets are economic and administrative in nature. They count things, wheat, and other administrative things. Many of the clay tablets covered with cuneiform inscriptions were signed with imprints from cylindrical seals. As such, they anticipate printmaking technology and ultimately other mass media. It is important to note that the seals were exclusive possessions. Specific dignitaries owned the images and therefore the right to reproduce them. It's not exactly the same as individual ownership. Specific social roles gave individuals the right to own certain images and, by extension, the related cylinder seals. Cultural myths in Sumer. Other cuneiform inscriptions are poetic accounts of the culture's myths. From these, we learn that the city of Uruk was probably ruled by Inanna, the powerful queen of heaven, goddess of the moon, and of seasonal regeneration. The main figure at Tel Asmar may have been Abu, god of vegetation. Some of the seals depict the deities residing atop mountains or in the sky. They are approached by rulers and priests. Let's continue with cultural myths. Cylinder seal images convey beliefs echoed for millennium in Western culture. The divine resides in the heaven, takes human form when visible, and can be accessed by powerful earthly residents. The belief in divine encounter on a mountaintop was continued in a later phase of ancient Mesopotamia, as we can see in the victory stela of Naram Sin. Watch the external video resource to hear more about the victory stela of Naram Sin. All right, to summarize, development of the city-state. So the first urban experience that we know was in ancient Sumer. Development of written communication, cuneiform inscriptions, along with the cylindrical seals, anticipated printmaking technology, and these were used for record keeping and recording cultural myths. Development of a social hierarchy led by priest kings. Development of powerful cultural myths that are echoed by other Western cultures for thousands of years. So the divine or the gods reside in the heavens. Gods take human form when visible, and gods can be accessed by powerful earthly residents. Social hierarchy and cultural myths demonstrated visually on artworks such as the Standard of Ore and the Victory Stela of Naram Sin. Okay, thanks, and that's it for parts 1 and 2. Parts 3 and 4 will continue in the next video. Thank you.